First and foremost, I want to thank God for all the talents I got. It's only because of you, man. All perfect gifts, all good and perfect gifts come from the Lord, the Father of life.
Amplified version. So the Lord took the man he had made and settled him in the Garden of Eden to cultivate and keep it. So right away, it just lets you know that your man, as the man in the relationship, you're supposed to cultivate and keep. So cultivate the person, build your woman up. Teach her what you know. Teach her the ways of God. You're supposed to keep her. You're supposed to protect her. You're supposed to provide for her. You're supposed to have provide the home and the safety. For that woman to be able to be there and be the helpmate that you need. So that's first and foremost your role as a man is to cultivate and keep. And so what does that mean to you, bro?
Man, cultivating and keeping. Man, you genuinely you're working, right? So to cultivate, my bad, my fault. So to cultivate, to cultivate means you're growing. That means your job is to go out and work. Your job is to go out and build. Your job is to go out and you're creating infrastructure and putting your family, putting your wife or putting your kids in position for them to have a strong foundation to be able to not only sustain in the current times, but you want to use that to sustain for generations to come, right? And that's the keeping part. So whatever it is that you are building and cultivating, you want to make sure that you're able to sustain and keep that. So that way, when you're done, when your lifespan is up, now your kids have something to have foundation pieces on. And then that's how we create the generational wealth. You know what I'm saying? I know we talk about that a lot, right? The generational wealth, not only just finance, but generational wealth spiritually, generational wealth emotionally, generational wealth physically, right? So leaving those things and putting those things and having those things in place where you are able to use the talents and the gifts that God has given you, and you're building your foundation, you're building your family up to glorify Him, and then now as you reap the benefits of it, now you're able to be a sower, you'll be able to do so many great things, but more importantly, it's passed down. You know what I mean? It's passed down to now you're passing it down to your kids, or you're passing it down to your wife, and now they're able to utilize what you've built by God, from God, and be able to go bless and go spread seeds and go be fruitful and multiply in a multitude of ways. You see what I'm saying? So that's kind of just where I'm at with that.
Yeah, no doubt, man. What you're saying is so important, man. And it's vital to learn that as soon as possible, so that
Right.
you back and then you out here and you done already dated quite a few. Man, you got to reel it back in. But you got to start where you got to start as well.
No
Um,
doubt.
so this is from what I've been taught as well. For the women's side, and this kind of has both the male and the female's portion in it. So this is from Ephesians 22 through 27.
Mhm.
Let's see. Wives, understand and support your husbands in ways that show your support for Christ. The husband provides leadership to his wife the way Christ does his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing.
Mm.
The church submits to Christ as he exercises such leadership. Wives should likewise submit to their husbands. Husbands, go all out in your love for your wives, exactly as Christ did for the church, a love marked by giving, not getting. Christ's love makes the church whole. His words evoke her beauty. Everything he does and says is designed to bring the best out of her, dressing her in dazzling white silk, radiant with holiness.
Mm.
So right there, man, it just shows like the balance, that's really like the foundation of how this whole thing works. And I think when just from my reading that, especially being a few years older than what we used to be in our culture,
Yeah.
everything I don't need no man for this, or I don't need that, or I'm intermittent. I got my own money and all that type of stuff. But what happens is, especially because I'm 37, what you 36 or 37?
Yeah, 37. Yeah.
37. So once we start getting to this age, it's like everyone that was talking like that is starting to backpedal back to what God is talking about, because it's not so easy doing that on your own.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
but the main thing is a lot of men are not living up to that standard. So
Right.
that make it easy for that woman to be the helpmate. That doesn't make it easy to lay hair down and just be chill on that aspect. So it's like you have to be exemplifying being a cultivator and a keeper for her to be able to do that. So and otherwise the respect level is not at the level that it needs to be for that to happen, man. What you think about that?
Absolutely, man. I think you hit it right on the head, man. So before us as men, before we get to doing the name pointing and our name blaming and pointing the finger, man, we gotta remember that some of those fingers are pointing right back at us. You know what I mean? And so I think us taking responsibility and taking accountability. One thing is men, man, we have to take accountability, man. So a lot of these positions that we've put our women in is for the simple fact that we have not stepped up and we have not taken ownership of the responsibilities that in the things that God has appointed and given us, right? So I think, man, before we can even, start to even, divvy into, helping our women and so on and so forth, man, like we need to make sure, man, we looking ourselves in the mirror. It goes back to the famous story in Genesis, right, with Adam and Eve and Eve, listen to the serpent, listen to Satan, and she was deceived by Satan and got Adam to eat the apple. Well, Adam got the first command from God anyway, right? So if Adam would have stuck to what God had told her, what God had told him, his job was to protect Eve from being deceived, but instead he fell short of his responsibility. So I know people like to point the blame at Eve, but let's take it. Let's point the blame at Adam. You know what I'm saying? Because Adam had the first command from God, right? And then Adam's responsibility was to watch out and take care of Eve in that moment. So I think for us, man, we need to, as men, I think this is so important, man. Why you and I are doing this. And also too, man, in the circles that we're in the basketball space and football space and just sports period, like we have to be able to have these heart to heart and real conversations. And we got to understand what that looks like. And just in regards to discipline, right? And I'm gonna revert to Hebrews 12:6. And it says, "My son, do not take the Lord's discipline lightly or faint when you are reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and punishes every son whom he receives." So that discipline that comes from the Lord, man. So with us not taking on our responsibility, like I like to look at that discipline as it means like, man, you know what? You got to take this on the chin. But now it's time to get back in the gym. It's time to get back to work. It's time to get back into the weight room. It's time to get back to, you got to eat that loss. You got to eat it. You got to let that just sit in your spirit. You got to let that just kind of marinate on you a little bit because you need my correction. Because if you're blinded by what you can't see, you're going to fall into a deeper trap. You're going to fall into a deeper depth. Right. So, man, the discipline that the Lord has given us as men and what we've had to take on the chin and what we had to be accountable for, man, let's look at that as an act of love by God, because God sees and he knows who we are called to be. You talked about it, man, before we started the pod, man, just our birthright, our God-given natural birthright, right? The will that he had in place before we got caught into the depths of sin. Right. So, man, understanding that men, we got to make sure before we do this and before we do that, let's look at ourselves in the mirror. Let's hold each other accountable. So make sure you get a group, be a part of a male group or a group of guys that's walking the same walk as you, that's trying to pursue and run after Christ every single day. You know what I'm saying? No days off. Because the moment we start doing that and the moment we start walking into and truly accepting our role, women are going to feel more safe to be submissive. And they're going to feel safer about, man, you know what? I have a man that I can trust that will lead me. You know what I'm saying? Because women, the reason why women they have this wall up and this protective shield up is because they feel like they can't be led.
Lord knows that I'm heaven sent. Thank God for the future, past, and the present tense. It's newfound love for my Father God. Got the devil tense.